I want to talk about the dash macro a little bit. Lord Rufomonger brought it up. He wants Street Fighter 6 to have a dash macro. There were a lot of opinions on this. So I actually think takes like this are pretty bad, right? Like, y'all need to stop. Does everything have to be made easier? LOL. It's literally a double tap. So this was my take. I understand the accessibility aspect, but fighting games need to be balanced around the dash button. So where do we even begin with this? So the place I want to start is slightly on the people who don't want a dash button. The first game that I played that has a dash button, let me bring it up. This is actually the place I want to start. Just old games in general. So like, not everybody is raised on games, but like a lot of people who think they're like, oh, I'm a gamer, right? They might have been playing video games for a long time. So in video games in this age, a lot of games have like double tap forward to dash a direction, right? A lot of games have that. Some games have like press like a button, hold it to run. Other games have like double tap. You've seen both. If you play video games for a long time, as you play more and more, you have like certain expectations of like what controls are. Definitely the people who are in the camp of like, why would you change this? Double tapping is always dash. They have this opinion because they just played a lot of video games. Like that is how I used to think too. Also, I'm just like, well, you know, like whatever the game gives you is what it gives you. Like if it's hold a button to run, then I do that. From here though, we got to look at why people want it, because I actually think most of the reasons why people don't want it, I think a lot of people think it makes the game too easy, which I think is a bad reason. There's some people like me who think about the game balance, which is a good reason. We will revisit this later. There's some really big advantages to having a dash macro. It's all about ease. Anytime you have to put a little dash in your combo, people call it micro dash. I actually was super opposed to the term micro dash like forever, but too many people use it, so we are here today. That's how language works. So it helps with dashing in the middle of combos. It helps with mobility in general. GG even takes it like the extra step as far as a Guilty Gear game, because Guilty Gear never had, to my knowledge, macro for running. It makes air dashing easier, because air dashing is if we're gonna say that dashing in games, if you play video games for a while, is very intuitive, because just tap forward twice or tap back twice, then IND is not very intuitive, because you have to jump and tap forward in a certain window. So you see my lever here. So I'm really uncomfortable doing this, but you can do 9-6, so up, forward, and forward, right? This is the way you're supposed to do it in anime games. This is actually very difficult for me to do, because this is not the way I learned how to do it. The first game that I played, you can't do it like this. The first game that I played, you have to do forward, up or up forward, and then neutral and forward again. So you have to do 6, 9 or 8, 5, and 6. So if I input it manually, I would do it like this. I could do this all day. So if you see my lever, do you see how much more cursed the way I do IAD is compared to other people? Where all other like Guilty Gear, Blazing players, they'll do like 9-6, which I actually can't do. So the dash macro in Strive is actually pretty special because it lets you air dash too. So now, if you've never played a fighting game, you can air dash by just jumping and pressing a button, and you don't have to go through the hurdle of learning like the super cursed Melty Blood air dash or like the classic Guilty Gear Blaze Blade air dash, which is not an intuitive input for people, not only for people who played video games for a long time, but people who have never played a video game and are trying to play, they will also not be able to do it. So it helps with that, which makes it easier for people to get to the real game. That's a really big reason for people. Of course, if you're thinking about accessibility, you also are thinking about people who may have problems with their hands. You quietly hear about it now from high-level players, but there's some people who experience hand pain. This definitely applies a little bit more to older games. You don't hear about it so much in Strive because like you do have the dash macro. It just helps with movement stuff quite a bit. Now, people don't want this because it makes the game too easy. Again, I said this is a bad reason. The much better reason, I think, is the game balance. So, for example, Strive is made with the dash macro in mind. So what do I mean? So the first example is an obvious example that people use. They talk about charge characters. Charge characters, there's actually two main things about charge characters and their inputs. So a charge input is easy. In a competitive sense, it's like an easy input because you're just holding the direction and you just switch to the direction when you see a situation when the move will come out. So the classic is, of course, like it's like Guile doing this until somebody jumps at you, right? It's that meme of like Mario is trying to jump over the lava and Guile is there crouching. The constraint on it is that you have to be holding the direction for a little bit because the move is really, really good, but instead of being able to just do it with a simple quarter circle so you can do it whenever you want, you have to wait for a little while to be in position to do it, and then you do it. Now, one thing about Strive specifically is that a lot of the traveling charge moves, S-Dolphin in particular, for Leo, it will be S Fireball. The fast charge moves that travel distance are really negative. So, as if you know, like Anti-May, this is -5, which means it's also minus on hit. And Leo's S Fireball point blank is like, I want to say like -17 or something. It's very, very disadvantaged, right? The ones that are advantageous are, as you can see, much lower. So this is like 25 frames, and I forget what the Leo H Fireball is. I think it's around like 30-ish something frames. So this is very, very intentional. This is very, very intentional. If you had a traveling move that is also plus on a charge, combined with a dash macro, it is really strong. Why? Since you're using the button, you are able to move while charging in different ways than in games where you can't do this. So for May, for example, May, you could do like charging dash vertical dolphins, and maybe in this version it's better than the last patch, right? Leo has dash fireball also, and he does have dash TP. Razo has these on deck. How do they do this anyway? But anyway, the game is made with this in mind. The other thing that's really, really big is backstep also. Backsteps in this game compared to previous Guilty Gear games, so Exert and XX. In Exert and XX, you have things like, if we go to character select, as a Melee player in Exert, I memorized all this stuff because you had to. So in this game, there are essentially 3 types of backdashes. There's 4-frame invul, 5-frame invul, and 6-frame invul. The characters who have 6-frame invuls are, like Nago, Potemkin, Gold Lewis. So theirs are like reactable. It's like 23 frames total for the entire backdash. However, they have more invincibility than everyone else. Then you have like your Milia and Mays of the world. I think it's maybe there's one other character that has this, who has the 4-frame invincible backdash, but the backdash total duration is so short that you can't react to them. Why did they change this from XX and Exert? Because in Exert, for example, Potemkin has a 21 frame total duration backstep, but it has like 20 frames 20 frames of invincibility. Or Emilia has an 11 frame total duration backstep, but it has like 6 frames of invul. So every character has different total durations with honestly way more invincibility overall than Strive, right? Like Milia's backstep has as much invul as the most invincible backsteps in Strive. Why did they do this? The main reason, I think, is because they let you backdash with a button. I'm sure that you have played matches and you're like, man, this dude was mashing backdash here or there or the other thing. I had to fix this about my own playing because I realized how much of a crutch and 2 a bad habit it is to like abuse the backdash button. If it was like old Guilty Gear, but with the current frame data of stuff, because everything in this game has been generally slowed down and generally has less advantage than before, then dealing with backdashes attached to a button would just be mega cursed. It would just be really hard to hit people. The trade-off for having this shortcut is that they've done a bunch of stuff to the game. Of course, there are other reasons why they changed how moves work and things like that, but the dash macro is a big part of it. What happens when you add a dash macro to a game that it's not made for? Funny enough, before the Roofermonger tweet, we did have a case of what happens if you put dash macro in a game that's not made for dash macro. Shouts to Mal Rodin. I said his name wrong then, because I thought it was Maldorin, but it's Mal Rodin. So you get charge tricks, which the game is not made around of, right? Way more defensive techniques than normal, and then backdash movement that you would not normally have access for. And also, the other thing you didn't mention, but I guess it's implied by tons of defensive OSs and movement stuff, is that, as I mentioned before, in Exert and XX, the backdashes are just way stronger. So let's look at the clip, right? Breaking this clip down a little bit, he gets dashing pool balls, right? So that's, I believe that's Carcass Raid. Carcass Raid is like, let's bring out the Exert notes too. Oh shit, we get to bring out the Exert notes, but S Carcass Raid is +10 on block, +7 on IB. Heavy / Carcass Raid is -9 on block, -12 on IB, but I think it's based on point blank. He's getting dashing HS Carcass Raid. So S Carcass Raid is supposed to be the one you use when you think they're going to block. HS Carcass Raid is to catch jumps, as you can see by how it's bouncing. He gets combos you would not normally get. He gets to move differently. Look at him backdashing in a way that you would never be able to for this little segment right here. Exert moves are way more advantageous than Strive moves, so this little situation here would be pretty fucking hard to defend, honestly. fun little movements, right, for a game that was not thinking of dash macro. The thing is, though, we have had other games that had dash macros. There's Melty Blood that we talked about before. Melty Blood was ahead of the game, but the issue is you have to press 2 buttons on the same frame. That shit is really, really annoying. Another game that actually had it is Dragon Ball 2. So Dragon Ball has it, but Dragon Ball doesn't give it to you on backdashes. You can dash forward, you could use it for various movement things, but you can't use it for backdashes. I think there's a way to add dash macro to all fighting games, and I think it does help. It just needs to be implemented the right way. I think it's very short-sighted to say that you shouldn't have a dash macro because it just makes the game easier. What happened to like working hard for stuff? But I also don't think you should just put it in every single game as is. Legit, you can't add it to the old Guilty Gear games the way they are right now. But for fighting games moving forward, especially for fighting games that have like a lot of mobility, it's a legit thing that should be an option and that the developers should consider it. But if you start seeing this this argument going back and forth, because it happens like once every like 4 or 5 months, people debate about this. This is basically what it's about. This is my take on it.